Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us for what is sure to be inspiring and fascinating discussion about artwork. We're here to talk with the amazing artists on display in the exhibition Animalia, which is currently on display at the Silkpurse Art Center. My name is Stephen Snyder. I'm the Gallery and Communications Manager for the West Vancouver Community Arts Council, and we host all of the arts and culture activities that take place in the Silkpurse in the gallery section, including the art exhibitions. And I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge that here at the Silkpurse, in beautiful West Vancouver, we are on the unceded and traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, in particular the Squamish Nation, the Tsleil-Waututh Nation, the Musqueam Nation. And we are incredibly honored and grateful to be able to celebrate all manner of arts and culture with and alongside our host nations. So we are here to talk about Animalia, which features four distinct and interesting artists whose subject matter for the show is animals, all kinds of animals. And we'll get into all of the ins and outs of why they've created the artwork that they do. As we're going throughout this conversation, if you have any comments or questions, please drop those in the chat and we will get to that a little later in this conversation. So Animalia is here at the Silkpurse until July 21st, 2024. So please come on down and check it out. So let's get to know our artists a little bit. With us, we have Sharka Leigh, Cory Kinney, Peymen Hajian, and Kathleen McCormick. And now they're all going to tell you a little bit about themselves. Oh, and we also have a special guest. We have with us, we have Peyman's wife, Sohalia, who will be helping us with any little translations that we might need along the way. So actually, why not? Let's start with Peyman. Let's hear from you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Peymen Hajian. Go ahead, Soila. تشکر میکنم از استیون و کسایی که برگزار کردن نمایشگاه رو و خوشحالم که با آرتیستای دیگه آشنا.
He first says thank you to you, Stephen, and West Vancouver Art Council for arranging this exhibition, and he's grateful to be part of this exhibition with other amazing artists here.
من تقریبا نزدیک 25 ساله که مشغول کار هنری هستم و توی ایران کارم رو شروع کردم از یه استودیوی خونگی مثل همین.
He has started artwork about 25 years ago from his family house underground, from a house workshop, like a little studio underground.
بعد توسعهش دادم، تبدیل شد به یه مؤسسه یا آموزشگاه و یه گالری.
And then gradually changed to an art school and a gallery, an art gallery.
و شروع کردم خودم به یادگیری بیشتر، مدارکی که باید گرفتم و در رابطه با کارم، در رابطه با حالا.
And then he started to study in wood art field and had a few certificates in wood marquetry and wood inlay, and what was the other one?
Yeah, wood sculpture.
Wood sculpture. And then he started he learned and he started studying the same arts.
نمایشگاه‌های تکی و گروهی زیادی رو توی ایران داشتم، بیشتر از شاید 20 تا.
He had more than 20 solo and group exhibitions back in Iran.
و 5 سال پیش مهاجرت کردم اومدم به کانادا.
and we moved to Canada 5 years ago.
و اینجا حالا به غیر از 1 سال اول تا خودم رو پیدا کردم، بعدش دیگه توی خونه دوباره یه کارگاه خونگی رو درست کردم و مشغول به کار هنری.
And then right after getting settled in Vancouver, he started looking around to find a way to go back to his artistic and he had to like the one of our homes bedrooms as gallery and studio.
اوایل ابزارا و وسایل کارم رو جور کردن و ساعت برای یک کار برام خیلی سخت بود. با ابتدایی ترین ابزار من شروع به کار کردم.
It was really hard for him to find time and tools at the beginning to start making wood crafts.
و آشنایی با محیط جدید و فرهنگ جدید.
And getting to know the new environment and new culture and new people.
بعد از این متوجه شدم که با اون سبک و استایلی که توی ایران کار میکردم اینجا متاسفانه نمیتونم کار بکنم به خاطر هزینه، وقت و نبودن ابزار.
He soon realized that he cannot continue the same method he had back in Iran because of the tools, the materials, and what again?
هزینه و جا و
and the cost and the place to work.
ولی چون عاشق کار هنری بودم، دریفت بود اینجا نظر منو خیلی جلب کرد موقعی که میرفتم کنار آب قدم میزدم و صدا زد و اون به من گفت که چی کار کنم تا اینجا و این مجموعه.
And then because we live close to the ocean, when he was going to the ocean, the pieces of the driftwood touched his eyes, and then he's saying that they called me, like the driftwood pieces, they called me. Then and that was the most accessible material for him, and without any cost actually. And then he was happy to use the recycled wood instead of like paying to buy with like the material.
و ایده هایی که تو ذهنم می اومد برای یه خلق یه کار هنری رو میتونستم با دریفت وود انجام بدم به خاطر زیبایی طبیعی که داشت.
And then the ideas he had in his mind, he could imagine them when he saw a piece of driftwood.
و برای یه مجموعه از کارهایی که داشتم یه مقدار چوب تهیه کردم و این کارا رو انجام دادم و الانم مشغول یه مجموعه دیگه.
He collected a few different driftwood pieces for the collection that now is in Silkberg's gallery, and then he has started to collect some other pieces for his new collection that he has started to having it, I think 2 weeks ago.
من نپرسیدم چقدر وقت دارم برای صحبت.
Sorry, he didn't ask that how much time he has, so he says that maybe he's talking a lot.
Sorry. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, Peyman and Sohaila. That was great to know a little bit about you. And that was a great amount of time.
Okay, perfect.
There's a lot to say talking about your practice.
Yeah, thank you.
Next, how about, I'm just going to go alphabetically. Cory, could you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. Hello. My name is Cory Kinney. I am sort of affectionately known as the bug or insect guy in this show. Those are the pieces of mine that you can see behind Stephen there. I went to art school in Toronto and trained under Canadian watercolorist Peter Marsh. Worked for many years as a filmmaker before turning back to painting. And it was during a trip to London, to the Natural History Museum in London, where I came across their entomology collection and took many reference photographs of that, including some of the specimens that Charles Darwin had returned from the Galapagos, and also Alfred Russel Wallace. And I'd say the biggest influence for my pieces came from actually a 1665 book by Robert Hooke called Micrographia, which was one of the first treatises on looking through a microscope at things that were very small. Microscopes were new at the time, and those renderings really sort of caught my imagination, and I sort of thought as a theme for this particular show, you know, wouldn't it be interesting to consider that against the you know, or looking through the lens of climate change. And we always tend to sort of think about how climate change affects us on a human scale, but we don't often sort of look to the very small and consider the impact it has on the biodiversity, right down to the smallest level. So that was the impetus for my works on this show.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that, Cory. Next, let's move on to Sharka. Please tell us a bit about yourself.
Hey, hello, my name's Sharka. And I also want to thank West Vancouver Art Council and the Silk Purse Art Center for choosing this fun exhibition with the four of us. I think it's a lot of fun, and having everyone doing their different work has come together very nicely. I work out of my home studio in North Vancouver, which I feel I'm very fortunate to have. I choose to paint in acrylic. That's my chosen medium because of the way it dries quickly and allows me to do many layers. I have no formal academic schooling or art universities. I've learned just through workshop artists and a mentor named Brian Simons, who is from Victoria. I almost gave up painting before I went to see him, and my husband said, "There's one more workshop I would like you to take." And I said, "I'm so done, but okay, we will do it." And he I don't know, there was something he found the way I could paint, and basically that was in 2009. I have been painting full time since 2009, 2010, about that. I also received my signature status with the Federation in 2019. So I am an associate of the Federation of the Canadian Artists. What else can I say? I paint basically what I see from photo reference, so I feel I'm a representational artist. I do paint many subject matters, but my favorite, of course, by the exhibit are cows. I love animals, but the cows, for some reason, they have personality. They have curiosity in them. Their eyes sparkle. They're like an 800-pound dog. It just fascinates me, and I have a passion now for them, so I continue painting them. I'm trying to think what else I can say. It's very nerve-wracking here, but yeah, and I've always been playing with some kind of art form, and then that's why in 2009 I just finally felt I needed to go out and do it as the fine art, and I keep going. My journey is not done. I continue to learn to add to my portfolio, and currently I am now learning watercolor and going outdoors to paint, and it's challenging, but I'm having a lot of fun. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing, Sharka. And Kathleen, please introduce yourself to us.
Hi, Stephen. I'm Kathleen. My artwork are the eagles. I'm currently monitoring the eagles in the Lighthouse Park. We keep track of them to see how their health is and how their chicks are. And I was lucky enough today to see one launch for the first time. So our chicks are growing up and leaving the nest this week and next week. I grew up in Lynn Valley and used to roam the woods freely as we did as kids back then, and was a big fan of the Ecology Center. So I've always been connected to my environment, completely inspired to draw things like grizzly bears. And I've been lucky enough to go and paddle the Great Bear Rainforest. So I was drawing ravens and white bears and coastal wolves as well. Really inspired by their beauty and just my connection to them and their connection to the land, and just trying to represent that is always a challenge for me. So it keeps me kind of coming back. I just kind of driven to try and represent what I see and how it affects me and how inspiring they are. So just the feeling in one of those pictures of the eagles when they call in the woods, and that kind of haunting, beautiful sound as they call each other or warn each other off of their territory. Yeah, it just keeps me going, showing up at the page every day or taking photos. I work from my own photos right now. So yeah, you'll see me roaming the woods as often as I can, taking photos. And that's basically me. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, Kathleen. And again, thanks everyone for giving us a little bit of insight into who you are, your background, and where you're coming from. Next, we're going to take a quick little couple-minute view of the exhibition so y'all can get a feel for what it's like. So I'm just going to load that up right now. And sorry. There we go. So this is just an overview of the show. If you're coming in off of our waterfront entrance, that's where the Silk Purse is. We're right on the Ambleside waterfront in West Vancouver. Yeah, it's a nice, tiny, intimate space full of some fantastic art right now. And this video doesn't do the piece justice. You have to in person check it. So we start off as you come in on the waterfront with Sharka's fantastic paintings. And as we go out, you'll go through the exhibit, you'll see just how distinct and unique each artist is in their media and their application and their style and technique. Yeah, and as you were saying earlier, Sharka, about personality, and that's something that I think you can definitely see in your pieces. There are definitely like portraits, you know, it seems to be that's the approach you've taken rather than just here's a nice painting of a cat.
I like to call them in your face.
Definitely. Yeah, and as you mentioned, your attempt to capture all of their realness and the sort of hyper reality of them is quite evident. And then we get to move on to next to that, we come to Cory's bold and very big, bright, colorful paintings of insects, which again have a lot of detail, a lot to see, a lot of texture, a lot of amazing color. And then we have a fantastic one of Peyman's wonderful sculptures here, which we'll see a bit more of shortly. And then Cory's final piece, this humongous and beautiful beetle. In the center of the gallery, then we get to move on to some of Peyman's very lovely and elegant driftwood sculptures. So, horses and cows. Now we move on to insects, and now we're at our bird stage. And again, then as opposed to, I guess, all the other three artists, there's such simplicity in the form and style of Peyman's work. As you can see, it's greatly contrast with Kathleen's graphite renderings of eagles at various ages. And again, so much detail. It's fascinating. And I think also Kathleen, you've been able to capture personality in these creatures as well, the eagles, and where they're looking, are they shouting at something? What's the call about?
I've gotten to know them over the years, these eagles.
I bet, yeah. After monitoring them for so long, you kind of build a relationship.
Mm.
Yeah, I really enjoy, we've got acrylic paint, we've got the wood sculpture, we've got the graphite drawing. It's a really diverse media on display, which I think is very interesting for folks. Yeah, and then we end the show on another one of Peyman's lovely pieces here.
Peyman mentioned that is a symbol of a cypress, I think. It was really interesting to talk to him about the symbolism in the little pieces.
Yeah. No, that's what we're on to next. Is everyone here has chosen one of the works on display to talk about a little bit more in depth as a bit of a representation of their overall body of work. And again, just a reminder, if you have questions or comments for artists, feel free to drop those in the chat. Since we were just over on that wall across from me, let's start with those two artists. How about Kathleen? I'm going to pull up the piece that you've selected. Excellent. Could you please tell us about this fascinating work?
Well, this is the eagle at Jack Pine Point in Lighthouse Park, and I sit under that eagle and watch him fish and look after the two chicks it has right now. And the call is just something that stirs your soul when they arch back like that. And I just had to capture it one day, and it takes a long time to capture it once you have the idea. So it took quite a while, but just the essence of that, like almost guttural call that echoes in the woods. And that's what I was focusing on there. It's kind of stirring when they do that.
Yeah, definitely. You can definitely feel the power in the call that this eagle is making, that beak so widely open. I'm curious as to why graphite. And you said you work a lot from the photographs you've taken. Why do you do graphite?
It's kind of a funny story. I have allergies, and I was painting and things like that, but it actually gave me asthma. So this is the most clean way to work. It doesn't give me allergies or asthma. I love to paint. I have to do it outside and wear a mask and such. And when I want to use color, that's what I do. I also use inks, which are less, I don't know, inflammatory. I also love the cleanness and the just starkness of the pencil and how detailed you can get. That simple representation that takes it almost down to like elemental. Yeah, so there you go.
Oh, wonderful. And talk about you work as an eagle monitor, so you get to know your subjects. How did you get started in doing that?
Well, an interesting story. I was hiking Lighthouse Park quite frequently, and I got to know the ranger, Lee. And he said to me one day, as he'd seen me quite frequently, you need to talk to Sally, who runs the North Shore Eagle Network. And she has a bunch of volunteers that work on the North Shore, and they help with the eagles in the area and monitor the population. And I was just completely enthralled and intrigued because, of course, eagles are such a symbol of strength and vision, and part of our connection to the land. When you go paddling, even this morning I was out paddling in Ambleside, and there were 2 eagles out in John Larson Park. So they're just such a part of the community and such a great symbol of strength. And there you go. I'm quite connected to them.
Excellent. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Right, next. Oop, that's not it. Next, Sharka. Please tell us about this fantastic painting.
Unmute. Am I? Yes.
Yeah, you're good.
I don't have one favorite one. They're all my favorites. But I chose Lita. That's her name. And Lita, I've actually painted her quite often, so I've gotten to know her palette. And there are many, many layers in this painting, but the idea of acrylics being able to dry so fast gives me that opportunity. When I also saw this picture, I kept the name of Maid of Honor because Heidi, the owner of the farm, which I got to actually meet in person in 2018, and I got to meet Lita and the other jerseys. So it was also something that was personable, and getting to know Heidi and becoming friends, I thought it would be a great piece to show. She also was the icon of Sugar Maple Jersey. The flowers, I've never done flowers like this, so they were kind of messy because I'm so detailed. So I was messy, but still detailed enough. And the greenery, so the browns and the greens, and her just being there in a wedding, just also gave me that nice touch that I could paint her. And then when I painted her, now I'm so happy that I have one last painting, because she did not make it. She passed away on August of 2023 due to complications. So many paintings of her now. This is at least one that I can have and cherish, and it probably might be sent somewhere. So, but just many, many layers. I find getting to know my palette is very helpful, and just layer on top of layer. The scruffier the brushes, the more I like it. Lots of dry brushing. And again, just because it can dry so fast, I can go in there quite quickly and I don't have to wait. If I had to wait too long, I'm not patient. So that's pretty much how this painting came along. And I mean, I fall in love with every painting, so it's hard to really choose a favorite. And by the show, I could tell that Blondie was one of the favorites, and I'm glad that she's going to a special home. So yes, thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing. You mentioned getting to know the palette, for your subjects and for each piece. I'm curious as to how much do you actually get to know the subjects, right? Like you mentioned, you've got to meet Lita here. How do you get your reference photos?
So I've connected with a few small family-owned farms, about 3 or 4. I always ask if I can use their photo before I paint anything. I don't believe I've had anybody say no. So these 4, they're not all farms. Three are farms, and one is Danny the vet, who is an actual veterinarian and has many pictures of different animals. But his poses and the personality and curiosity in those pictures, I'm just passionate about. So I kind of go through my photos, and if I go, oh, it's got something in it, then I want to paint it. And my palette, I don't use color right out of the tube. I do what's called a dirty brushing method. I have my colors on my palette, and I will just dip in back and forth and then just layer it. So I don't make like actual puddles of the acrylic paint. So I've been doing the dirty brushing for many, even before 2009. But then if I really want a color, it's hard to get if you want a specific color again. But I think that's what gives it the different dimension and the layering, and it's not all the same. So, and when I stick to a palette, I don't go in and bring in another color if, say, it wasn't working. I just stick with the colors I'm using, and I try and put it throughout the whole painting. Like if the yellows and whites down here, I added them everywhere else so that there's a harmony in the paintings. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. Next, we've got Peyman. Please tell us about this wonderful sculpture.
خب من توی این کار اون بافتی که اون چوب گریفت وود داشت برام خیلی جذاب بود و خیلی نزدیک بود به ایده های ذهنیم.
I'm sorry. In this piece, the texture of the driftwood was really interesting for him to work on it, and it was really close to his ideas of like mixing the driftwood, like the texture with the soft one.
و اینکه برای من اهمیت داره موضوع حیوانات و طبیعت.
And it's really important for him, the subject of animals and nature.
بیشتر با یه نماد رنگی و خیلی نرم و لطیف من اونا رو آوردم که بیشتر پرنده یا همین سایپرس.
And he usually shows this animals and nature in his works as a symbol of, like a soft symbol, like a bird, a color, like turquoise color, and cypress.
و خیلی جالب بود که الان کیتلین داشت صحبت میکرد که چطور مراقبت میشه اینجا از طبیعت و از حیوونا، حتی سرشماری میکنن و خیلی مراقبن اینجا.
It was really interesting for him when Caitlin was talking about like taking care of eagles, watching them, monitoring them, and it's really good that it's really important here for people to taking care of nature and animals.
و من میبینم اینجا مردم خیلی با حیوونا مهربونن.
And he sees here that people are really kind with animals here in this country, in this land.
ما متاسفانه توی کشورمون گونه‌های زیادی از حیوونا رو از دست دادیم به خاطر اینکه زیاد شکار شدن و توجه و مراقبت ازشون.
We've lost a lot of species back in Iran because of not taking care of like the animals and not noticing them, and that's unfortunate.
من اینجا سعی کردم به صورت نقوش خیلی ظریفی ماهی رو دو سه تا ماهی رو این پایین قسمت با هویه با برنینگ کردم.
Yeah, on the bottom layer of this piece, you can see fishes. He burned the wood at the bottom. They are so pale, and it shows that they are like most of the species are getting disappeared. It's not only in Iran. I think it's in most areas of underworld actually.
نه مخصوصا توی ایران چون رودخونه ها و لیک ها خیلی آلوده شده و این حیوانات دارن از بین میرن.
And specifically in Iran because of the pollution, like because the rivers and the sea is they are polluted, and we've been losing a lot of fishes and ocean I mean sea creatures.
اینجا دو تا بز کوهی رو من برونیم کردم.
And at the middle you can see two ibexes. They are pale as well, and that is one of the species that getting disappeared as well.
و همینطور ما یه مقدار از این حیوونا و حتی یوزپلنگ ایرانی رو از بین رفتن یا دارن از بین میرن.
And the other one, like we have leopard, Persian leopard that they are trying to keep, but we are losing a lot of them, and we have a few of them in Iran now.
و یه مقدار از پرنده ها حتی ما یک سری از عقاب ها رو داریم که فقط مخصوص اون منطقه و متاسفانه الان ما دیگه نداریم. اون بالای عقاب و
And at the top part you can see these are all like the drawing, the pattern, these are all ancient patterns. They are not modern drawings. They're all ancient patterns. And the top part you can see an eagle. In Iran we have some species of eagles that you can't find them in any other place in the world, but most of them we don't have them anymore actually.
و چون اینا دیگه به تاریخ پیوستن، یعنی رفتن تو تاریخ، فقط نقشی ازشون مونده.
Yeah, now they're joined to the history, and there's only like an image of them remain now. So he tried to show that pale image of those animals.
و من سعی کردم از نقوش سفالی که مال بیشتر از هزار سال 2000 سال پیشه که روی نقوش سفالی ما این ماهی، اون بز و اون پوچ و اون بوده. آره.
And yeah, he tried to show them like this. The drawings are for more than 1,000 years ago, like the pattern of the drawing. He tried to use those when we have a lot of species that we don't have them now.
و اسم این مجموعه رو من میراث گذاشتم چون ارزش ترین میراث ما واقعا طبیعت حیوونا و
And he named it heritage because the animals and the nature is the most valuable heritage that we have.
Thank you. That's all.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm curious, you've touched on it a little bit about some of the symbolism. I'm curious if you can say just a little bit more about the smooth shape, that almost teardrop shape, because that appears in another one of your sculptures here. What is the significance of that?
Yes,
سمبل برای ما هم رنگش هم شیپش دو تا چیز داره. رنگش یه سمبل زندگی و یه رنگ یک نماد معنوی داره برای ما.
He mixes like the color, like the turquoise color is the symbol of life, and it's a spiritual color in our culture. And the form, the shape is the symbol of Cyprus in our culture, in our all history culture.
Thanks for sharing that. And you must you were talking earlier about trying to get started in your artistic career here. Now that you're working with driftwood, you must have so much at your disposal. You must have just piles of it in your studio.
خیلی زیاد نداریم از کارهایی که زیاد داریم. We have a lot of pieces of driftwood. He has ideas for all of them, but he doesn't have time to make them.
That sounds about right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And then that leaves us with Cory. Please tell us about this wonderful painting.
Sure. This is a piece called Beetle on Black. It was based on a reference photo that I took at the Natural History Museum in London. It was one of the specimens that Darwin returned from his travels. And I think what appealed to me about this was the symmetry, not only of this beetle, but actually of most beetles in the Coleoptera genus. And what I really like about doing paintings like this is it merges the art and the science. And I feel all too often now, certainly in modern education, those two subjects tend to be separated, and I think that that's a real shame. I think that there's a great deal to be learned from both the sciences and the arts, and those two work really, really well together. When I was examining this particular specimen at the museum, the curator was kind enough to bring in an ultraviolet light and show us what the carapace on this particular beetle looked like under UV, and also all the other ones they had in their collection. And so I realized, or I came to learn, that there is a whole pattern that we cannot see with our human eyes and visible light, but it is readily apparent to insects in the ultraviolet spectrum. And so as I was creating this piece, what I made sure to do was layer it up with those patterns. And of course, you wouldn't see it under the light that it's under now. But if you decided to kind of turn it into a dance club and switch to black lights in the gallery, you would actually see these patterns that would emerge, including the one that's behind your head as well, Stephen. That is as another insect would see it.
Oh, that's fascinating. I want to get some different lights in the gallery now.
Right.
Just with these pieces, these really poppy, colorful pieces, you've got this, there's a very pop art, sometimes even a surreal element to them. Where does that come from?
Well, many years ago, when I was going through art school, I was originally going to be a 2D animator. And so I spent a lot of time learning how to draw traditional cell animation, and creating these kind of graphic standalone images. And that aesthetics never really left my work, whether it's, I'm doing the insects that are in the show, or whether it's in my other subject matter, which tends to be the old neon signs of Vancouver. I always try to go for almost a comic book look. So
one other question about the insects. I sort of told the origin of how you came about to sort of fall in love and be interested in them. I'm just curious if there's anything you think we as these big people can learn from insects, right? Because most of the time they're just something we don't think about, as opposed to the other animals being represented in this show. Everyone loves to go and see the eagles out in the park. People have these really strong personal relationships with the cows. We see birds all the time. We don't really pay attention to insects. Is there something you think there that we should be
Yeah.
paying more attention to?
Oh, well, that's a great question. I mean, I think that's you know you're accurate on that sense, is that we do tend to focus on things that are at our scale. You know, cows and eagles and birds, that they tend to be at our visual scale, and the stuff that tends to be very, very small, I think we often overlook, and yet there are these rich, complex, highly structured ecosystems that are just as important to sustaining life on this planet as are the things that we can kind of look at and go, yeah, it's about my size, or maybe a little bigger, maybe a little smaller, which are important as well, of course. But you know, we have to sort of recognize that these systems are in place, and that if they weren't, you know, we'd be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, no, definitely. Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. That was some fascinating introspections. Really appreciate it. And just to a few things that we've kind of you've all mentioned a lot of talk about caring for the animals around us, and biodiversity and climate change and monitoring and all of that, and sort of our relationship with the other living creatures that we share this planet with, and how we could and should be doing more to help them out. I'm curious as to maybe what you all think art's role can be in that relationship. I'll open that up to anyone who wants to answer.
Well, I think
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Kathleen.
I just think it's important to reflect upon what's around us and record it so that children in the future feel connected to their environment and realize how important it is. I'm an elementary teacher as well, so I just really think it's important to acknowledge and record and illuminate. And when you're talking about losing species, perhaps we're recording that. And especially if you're talking about, you know, bugs and things, we're thinking about bees and how bees are the infrastructure for everything on this planet. So it really, I think, records and illuminates that. And artists always kind of are the people who are recognizing things. We see things that maybe other people don't see. We take the time to sit in environments and listen and watch and record. And other people maybe can benefit from what we see and what we record in that way.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, Kathleen. I mean, obviously, it's an artist's job to reflect society back on itself, and you know, none of us have chosen to paint pictures of people looking at their cell phones. Yeah. But perhaps something more profound, as you said, you know, things that if we're looking at our screens, that maybe we are overlooking, and if we can kind of present them in a palatable, interesting light, maybe people are more inclined to protect them.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I don't know if I'm adding to this question, but the whole with the dairy and the cattle situation is, if basically we don't buy milk from them, not from the big companies necessarily, we're going to lose the farms, we're going to lose the animals, and then we're basically not going to have food to survive, and everything else, like the grass won't be eaten by the animal. It's just, I think it's a full circle for everything. I grew up on a little hobby farm. I've learned to do chickens. We collected the eggs. I think I even saw things that maybe not everyone does see when they eat the animals, but I understand it. In order for me to eat, I may not have to eat the meat, or I may not have to drink the milk, but I think we all need to know where our food comes from and how it's done. And I mean, the birds not being here, and the bees pollinating, and the sharks in our waters, if they're all gone, I think it will destroy the planet. So we need to keep everything around. And I think doing it in a creative way, I think keeps it going as well, and supporting. And, that's, I don't know if I kind of answered it in the same way.
Totally. Excellent. Peyman, did you have anything to add?
Yes, of course. خب زمین مال همه موجودات، هم ما هم حیوانات و هم درخت‌ها و جانورها.
The planet is for all creatures. We are sharing it, like all animals, creatures, and human.
اگه ما میخوایم جای بهتری برای زندگی باشه برای ما، با همسایه‌هامون باید مهربون باشیم.
If we want to have a better place to live, we need to be kind with our neighbors, like the wildlife and the animals and the creatures all around us.
ما همیشه از بچگی تو خونمون یه حیوان خونگی داشتیم و ارتباط نزدیکی با حیوونا داریم و احساس میکنیم که اونا چقدر عاطفه دارن، احساسات دارن و چطور با ما میخوان ارتباط برقرار بکنن.
I've always had an animal, a pet, since my childhood, and I always have a good relationship with them. And it's really interesting for me how they try to connect and get in relationship with us.
یه مدت با هم دیگه داریم صحبت میکنیم، تصمیم بگیریم که دیگه گوشت نخوریم به خاطر اینکه حداقل ما سهمی تو کشتار این حیوونا نداشته باشیم.
Yes, we've been thinking of not eating meat anymore. It's really hard for us after like 40-50 years, but like that's kind of our share of not harming those creatures. And yeah, the same as other artists said, yeah, he has the same idea of like, we see something that, I mean, he sees something that other people maybe can't see easily, not because they don't pay attention, because of the daily life. Everyone is really more busy to see these details, and it's the best way to remind people about the creatures around us.
And it helps when you have such talent and you're able to convey these images in such interesting and eye-catching ways. Cory, you're going to say something?
Oh, sorry. Just one last thing that I forgot to mention. Just in terms of the overall exhibit and even the name Animalia, these representations, these renderings that we've done of animals, this is a long and storied tradition going back tens of thousands of years to the Chauvet caves in France and to the caves in India where humans were drawing animals. We were drawing aurochs, the predecessor to the modern cow, and so from a historical perspective, I think Kathleen might have touched on this. These representations that we're making, they are of things that exist now, but in a sense they're also historical documents. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That's one of the great things about this exhibition is there are so many layers to enjoy it on, right? You can look at it from that point of view, from this documentation. You can enjoy it just by looking at the technique and the craft and the applications of media. You can also just try and think about our relationships with the animals and with the world around us. Or you can just come in because you see a really cool image of a really adorable or beautiful animal and enjoy it on that level. So I think it's got a lot of different ways to affect us. One last question. You may have all already answered this, but I'm just curious, what's your favorite animal? I think, Sharka, you've definitely already said it's cows.
I love animals. I've had dogs all my life and I have one now. So yeah, all animals. Like I just love them all. Yeah. And insects. I do like ladybugs and bumblebees and yeah.
منم همه رو دوست دارم و مخصوصا گربه که
He's the same as Shaka. He loves all the animals, specifically cats.
سالهاست که دارم با گربه زندگی میکنم.
Yeah, and he's been living with the cats for many years.
Kathleen, is it the eagle?
Interesting. It's the eagle. It's also, I was out on Lighthouse Park again today, and there were orcas out in the water. And I think anything that comes my way. I also live with cats. I have a horse. Grizzly bears, you know, they're all so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Cory, what's your favorite animal?
Well, I might go out on a limb and say the platypus, but no. No, I really like beetles, butterflies, moths. There's one that's sort of right behind your head there, Stephen, that's it's called the Madagascar sunset moth, and it is one of the most, there it is. It's one of the most spectacular, in my opinion, pieces of evolutionary development in nature. It's just, it's an extraordinary thing to see in real life. So yeah, that's mine.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing and discussing your work with us tonight. It's just been a fantastic conversation and wonderful to get to show to the public all of these really interesting works by four North Shore artists. I think that's really wonderful for the public to come in and see. And for those of you who are watching, if you get the chance before this ends, Animalia is on display again at the Silk Purse Art Center until July 21st here in beautiful West Vancouver. And if you want to know more about our artists or follow them and see what they're doing, there are links to their sites and social media in the description of this video. Thanks for everyone who came out to watch this and who's going to watch this again in the future. Consider liking and subscribing to our channel to stay up to date on all of the cool discussions about art that the Arts Council will share with you. And thank you to everyone who shared with us this evening. Thanks, Sohaila, for being here. And thank you, Peymen Hajian, Kathleen McCormick, Cory Kinney, and Sharka Leigh. Please come on and check out Animalia while you can.